Hey everybody, I was going through some of the old modules today and came across what is obviously a fan favorite, and thought it would be pretty interesting to talk it through a little bit. So today we're going to discuss Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, today on Greyhawk Ragnar. So, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. This is, as I said in the intro, a fan favorite. A lot of people have a lot of fond memories of going through this module. I only ran it once back in the day. Never really played it either. So my direct experience is a little shallower than a lot of other people's, but I've obviously poured through it endlessly over the years. First, I want to just go through the physical aspects of it. First of all, it's the first and perhaps only of the old TSR modules to have a double insert for the maps, just because there are 6 levels, including the tween decks levels. So, and the maps themselves are obviously just, wonderfully complex and different because it's a spaceship. The scenario itself, obviously, a part of a spaceship has crash-landed on the world of Greyhawk, and robots are randomly chucking out monsters out of the cargo holds, and they're ravaging the nearby settlements in the Duchy of Joff. It comes with 2 booklets. This was another one that continued the trend at the time of having a separate illustration booklet, and it's especially useful in this particular scenario because it's dealing with a lot of things, places and creatures and so forth that the player characters in-game would have no idea what it is, so it's very difficult for the DM to explain in such a way that doesn't key the players as, aha, that's a robot. If you show them the illustration, you can avoid some of that issue. Obviously the players are going to recognize it, but the DM doesn't have to use words that would kind of spoil the effect. And it also has this beautiful full color. It's got a centerfold with 4 illustrations, including the very famous Froghemoth thing in there. I think most of the illustrations are done by Jeff D, and they're amazing, obviously. And the adventure itself is 32 pages, which is big. The illustration book itself, I believe, is also 32 pages, maybe even more. I just outlined the basic scenario, but there's some specifics in here that I wanted to explore a little, because there's a few things that don't add up exactly, or if they do add up, they have very big implications for things in D&D. First of all, the scenario itself says that an entire walled town and 6 villages have been obliterated by creatures that have come out of the spaceship. And that leaves the question of what exactly were those creatures that got tossed out. The most powerful thing that I can find in here is a bulette, and that's still in stasis until the very end of the module. And I can't even imagine a bulette taking out an entire walled town by itself. So they never really explain what it was that was tossed out earlier on that prompted the PCs to go to the ship, that caused all that damage. So that's really weird. I don't think a horde of Vegapygmies is going to do that. Now that's kind of the whole setup of the module, is the different creatures that are found in here, and they make it very clear that the ship has been going through space collecting dangerous fauna. So it's got things like Shedu, there's a Mind Flayer in there, there's an Intellect Devourer, there are Doppelgangers, there's Lurkers Above, in addition to the new monsters that were added for the adventure, like the Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, which is one of my favorites. That's the one that has the little bunny rabbit sitting on the log, and it's actually got 2 tentacles, and they're going to come and get you. But that doesn't really explain where those creatures are coming from. In terms of the the Mind Flayer, it says, the module says very specifically it was taken while it was using probability travel. Okay, fine. So it was traveling, and somehow the ship captured it while it was traveling. All right, I can see that. But then you've got lurkers above, you've got doppelgangers, you've got intellect devourers, you've got Shedu, you've got all kinds of things that are in a normal D&D game. There's yellow mold, there's gray ooze, there's just all these regular monsters. And where did they come from? Because they weren't here originally. They were very clearly captured and escaped or whatever. It doesn't really say that any of the monsters came into the ship from outside while the hatch was open. So does that mean, it very plainly implies that these sorts of creatures are found throughout the universe in game, right? So it's you're getting, there are doppelgangers on every planet. There are Shedu. Well, Shedu are extraplanar creatures, but but there all these different creatures that we're seeing, shriekers and slithering trackers and stuff like that are found throughout the galaxy, and I wonder why that is, or at least they were found on a world that the ship visited prior to coming to Oerth, which could mean that maybe these species are, prevalent in a section of the galaxy. Maybe there's one part of the galaxy where all the crystal spheres are, and the phlogiston is there instead of a vacuum like you'd see in regular space. And the ship came in, visited one of those worlds, picked up all these specimens, and then that's where the plague came from, and then they had to separate the ship, and part of it crashed into Oerth. That's an explanation that would do. It would also explain why why the ship hadn't already known about them. Whatever civilization built and sent the ship out, if doppelgangers were ubiquitous throughout the galaxy, they wouldn't need to take them as specimens. So they were obviously something new, which means, like, let's say the ship started over here in the galaxy and traveled over here. This is where you see all those D&D species in there. But it also speaks to something about the civilization that sent out the expedition, because they don't seem to scruple about collecting intelligent species and locking them in stasis cages for examination. You're talking about mind flayers captured en route while they were traveling, and mind flayers are advanced intelligent creatures, and they just locked it up. Vegapygmies, while they're not too intelligent, they're obviously a sentient species. They were at some point collected and put into a zoo. So the civilization that built this does not have a big ethical problem with locking up intelligent species that aren't people, which is kind of an interesting little side note about the morality of this whole scenario, because in a lot of ways it's not their fault that they got picked up and moved into the ship and then moved to Oerth. Now that also brings up the question of which creatures in the module are new to Oerth. It doesn't really say, and while it implies that the new monsters that are listed in here are the new monsters that have come to the planet, it doesn't really say so out loud. Were there wolves in sheep's clothing before the ship came, and were there Vegapygmies before the ship came? Because if they came from the ship, then they would only be in that region of the Flyness, right? They'd only be around the Barrier Peaks and around Joff and that kind of area. So if we see, say, Vegapygmies in the Amadeo jungle, the likelihood that they came from the ship is very low, because it's so far away. So they don't really spell that out either, and I think that gives an interesting twist that the DM could use, because these are monsters, that are new to the planet and have, new powers and things like that the players are going to have no idea about. Now, another interesting thing about the monsters in here, there are several monsters in the module that aren't in the end. Right? They don't get a full monster manual type write-up. There are lizardoids, and there are baboonoids, and things like that are just given a stat block in the module, and they don't. You don't get really a full treatment of them, other than hit points and movement and stuff like that. So the other obviously major issue, not issue, but the major feature of the module is the technology, right? And it's got these weird technology flow charts that you roll dice and. You see to see how well you understand it. I never really liked this because in this case it was too random, because you didn't have any. The player didn't really have any choice. It was just roll a d4, roll a d12, roll a d this, and you wasted a charge or the item was destroyed. I would have liked a system, and I can't. I've thought about it for years, and I can't come up with a better one, in which the players actually have a little bit of decision making. It might be a blind choice, but at least it's a choice. But that's a little bit of a quibble when it comes to this sort of thing. On the whole, though, it is a brilliant module. It is one of those, it's a classic for a reason kind of modules, and physically, it is just an amazingly impressive piece of work for the time. It's got color illustrations. It's got an enormous number of wonderful Jeff D. Illustrations of various things. It's just absolutely amazing. So. Let me know what you think of the module down in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences with it, when you ran it back in the day or recently, or if you played through it. I'd love to hear your experiences. If you like the video, please hit the like button and, subscribe. Think about the Patreon. There's a big sale going on in the web store right now. Everything's, I think, 30% off as part of the DM's Day sale. That's going on for another couple days. So, hope you enjoyed this. And have a great day, and I will talk to you later.